All right, welcome.
Thank you. Nice to see you, man, and hear
Good to,
you.
good to see you too.
Yeah.
So, some people are tuning in, and just want to thank you again for having this conversation. And I'll keep an eye on the comments to see about people's questions. But I just want to introduce you. So, this is Ra Kalam. Many have probably know you as Bob Moses, but Ra Kalam is, I believe, your spiritual name. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Oh, and I should also say if there's any problems with the levels or anything like that, let me know. Um, and well, before I introduce you, would you tell us what Ra Kalam means?
Ooh. Ra Kalam means the inaudible sound of the invisible sun.
And where did that name come about?
I came from my spiritual teacher, Master Tussiji, Bapuji Tussiji Munoz.
Uh-huh. So most people tuning in probably know who you are, but for folks that don't, Ra Kalam, Bob Moses, is a drummer, composer, percussionist who is known from many different things, and also a visual artist. Uh, and actually have a piece of your art that's about this big. And the Ra Kalam has played with Pat Metheny, Jaco Pastorius. When you were a kid, I believe you jammed with Charles Mingus. I believe you lived in a building with Max Roach. Is that correct?
That's true. Yeah, that building was pretty wild.
Who else
Max
was in that
Roach,
building?
Max Roach and Abbey Lincoln, because they were married at the time.
Uh-huh.
Art Blakey, Elvin Jones, and Rahsaan Roland Kirk. Although he
So
wasn't Rahsaan then, he was just Roland.
so the list of people that you have collaborated with and played with is very long, and if I won't get into it right now, but we might it might come up. I know that we talked before, and you said you prefer to not dwell on the past so much, but are willing to answer any questions people have about that. Um, and so I was wondering if you, and one thing that I love, well, I just want to say when I first met you, I think it's been around 15 years. Um, there's a drummer in Portland named Reinhard Meltz. He plays with Gino Vanelli and Pink Martini, and
Heart
I
Melts.
took I took
Great
some
name.
lessons. What's that?
That's a great name. Heart
Yeah,
Melts.
yeah. And he told me I was going to Boston because I have family in Boston. I lived in Boston when I was little. And I told him that I was going to Boston, and he told me that the most significant lesson he ever received was from you. And I at the time didn't know anything about you, but I looked you up through New England Conservatory, and I found either your email or phone number, and you said yeah, I'll give you a lesson, come over, and I went over to your house, and by far the most unconventional lesson I had ever had, and I think it was 5 or 6 hours long,
Oh,
uh,
yeah, that's
and
pretty generous on it. Yeah, go
very
ahead.
generous. And we were hanging. I felt an initial just, well, I could tell I could feel your kindness and just a kinship of some short sort. But also just thinking like, what is going on with this lesson? Like I remember, you're showing me contouring, which to me looks sort of like dancing. You're showing me,
Yeah,
at some point you were using my arms to drum, like showing me like how to feel the music a little bit. And at some point you put on a record and showed me contouring, and it was just a very interesting lesson. And then whenever I go to Boston, I would make sure that I saw you. And so anyway, I feel very fortunate to know you, and appreciate a lot of you've said many things, and I've recorded lessons, and like I was telling you before, some of those things it's taken years to like, oh, that makes sense, or for those things to kind of start to be internalized by me. So anyway, I hope with today's conversation that other people get that out of the conversation, and we can really go wherever you want to go, and I'll read comments from people. But yeah, I'd love to hear about that building and what that building sounded like, what it felt like, what it smelled like. Like what was this building with Abbey Lincoln, Max Roach, Art Blakey, all these people in it. What was that building like?
Oh, I like that time, man. Plus, and not only that, but little punk Bobby Moses was there trying to learn how to play. We're all dreaming in the same space.
Uh-huh.
And of course, with a building like that, the visitors were quite impressive. I remember just getting in the elevator, and it would be, Jimmy Garrison, Booker Little, Eric Dolphy, Clifford Jordan, Reggie Workman. I mean, guys just in the lobby all the time.
Uh-huh.
And it was nice. It was on Central Park West, and it was rent controls. It really wasn't that expensive. Now I couldn't even imagine what that would cost to live there.
And so what years would this have been that you were when you were in this building around?
Chronology is my worst subject.
No worries. Just curious. About how old were you?
Teenager. I guess early '60s. I guess, yeah, early '60s, something. Yeah, it must have been. Yeah, it must have been early '60s.
Okay.
I remember
And what?
Coltrane, Sonny Rollins, and Thelonious Monk at Town Hall on New Year's Eve of '61. So I think I was already living on Central Park by then.
Okay. And so you were living there with your parents?
Yeah, yeah. Mingus used to come over. He lived across the park on Park Avenue.
Okay.
And it was important for him as a black man to be able to live on Park Avenue. He just felt like, why not? We should, we want that too. And my dad went and signed the lease for him because he didn't think they would rent to a black person on Fifth Avenue.
Oh.
That was more like, I don't know if you know New York, but that's like the rich, that's
yeah.
where the rich
So
white folks.
So by Central Park, is that what you were saying?
Yeah, it's on the other side of the park, on the east side of the park. Now, where I live on Central Park was quite racially mixed. I'm telling you, all these artists and musicians. And then if you went in from the park a little bit, it got kind of hoodish, mostly black, Latino, and you could get mugged. There was gang shit happening. There was drugs. There was violence and stuff. That was like right in from the park. But the park itself was pretty civilized, man.
Uh-huh.
And by the way, Harold Vick, one of my all-time favorite saxophone players, lived 418. He was like one building over. Herbie Hancock and Johnny Griffin lived in the building next door, on the other side. Horace Silver used to come. My uncle had a dry cleaning store, and he was a jazz fan. It was my great uncle Norman. I love this guy.
Mm-hmm.
And Horace Silver would bring his suits in. This was a block away from that building. And Horace, if you know that or not, he had a kind of a sweating disorder. He perspired really a lot, and he played that way too, like really strong. So he would go through 3 suits a night. Those are the days of suits, and he used to play gigs where you'd play 6 nights in a club. That's like 18 suits. That's a big dry cleaning bill. Seriously. So my uncle would say, bring in your suits when the boss is not around. He always did Horace Silver suits for free. That was my Uncle Norman.
Oh, cool. What was it like to know, like, what was Charles Mingus like, and what was it like to play with him, and what did you learn from him?
Oh, a lot, man. Jeez. Well, he was sweet to me, man. I think he got a kick out of me in a way, because he could be rough with people. He was just brilliant. He was like, have you ever read like James Joyce?
What did James Joyce write? I know the name, but
Well, his writing is really abstract.
I feel like I've maybe read a little bit.
Right. It's very hard to comprehend. It's more of a feeling, in a way. Mingus was like that, but black, with a black culture vibe. Mm-hmm. But he was like James Joyce in a way, like very, he would go, I remember in the clubs when he would play, sometimes somebody in the audience would say something and he would just start talking about traffic and one-way streets and just metaphors, and that's naturally how his mind worked. And this was a very magical moment. I just got Facebook by Mingus's son, Eric. I was so happy because I remember when he was a little teeny baby, man. Now he's a big dude. He's a grown-up old guy. And he reminded me we had met once before, but I had forgot. Anyway, I'm happy to be. He looks like his pops. Anyway, Mingus Well, one thing he told me I was talking about the meeting of Rasan. My dad drove Rasan over to Mingus to audition for Mingus's band. That was incredible. The two meeting for the first time, like two titans, and that was yeah. I'll never forget that.
I'd like to hear more about your experience with Mingus, but also how was your dad and your family connected with all these musicians?
Well, my dad at one point, I guess, was kind of like a press agent, publicist. He was on the New York scene, not just jazz, but entertainment in general. Later, he worked for movies. He always was. I never knew exactly what he did, but he was definitely tuned in to the music world. He used to book people. He worked for Stan Kenton. Got to see Stan Kenton had a very unusual big band. Well, as a kid, it was kind of very creative big band, Stan Kenton. And yeah, he just knew all these people. The people that we grew up with, like close family, were more like studio jazz player, but studio. Ed Shaughnessy was my godfather. And Mundell Lowe, the great guitar player, who I think just recently passed, who became a film writer. And Stanley Free, great Stanley Free, the piano player. These were my parents' generations. They were like second fathers to me. But then our house was open to people, Max and Abbey and Mingus and Elmo Hope and Edgar Bateman and Ken McIntyre and all kinds of people came through. I think my parents understood that I was into that, so they, as much as possible, surrounded me with it. You know, I think that's really what it was.
Yeah.
I grew up in Queens, you know, which was a place to play sports, to play ball. Kind of ball field, baseball, football, it's open fields, man. And I liked that as a kid because I was a jock. When I got into the music, I was like, no, I got to be in Manhattan. I got to be in the city, you know, because it's all city, but we call it Manhattan is the city. Brooklyn maybe too, but so. And I told my parents I'd run away from home if they didn't move to Manhattan, and they did. So they were trying to help me. I guess they were trying to please me, you know. I appreciate that.
And what did your mom do?
My mom was the gifted one, really, the most brilliant one in the family. She could do anything. She became a travel agent. And she booked a lot of the jazz tours, George Wein, all these European tours. Got a lot of stories about that. And she was incredible because she was generous. You know, now with the internet, hardly, I don't even know if travel agents really exist, but it used to be you'd book your ticket or plan trips or vacations. But she did almost all the jazz touring, a lot of stress. She would let people pay on credit, which no travel agent does. In other words, she'd give them the ticket and they said, we'll pay you at the end of the tour. Nobody would do that except my mom. And she got burnt. I'm not going to mention any names, but she got burnt by a couple of musicians who didn't pay her back, and it broke her heart. And it was, you know, it was really a bad thing. But yeah, she could do anything. She made clothes, the most beautiful clothes. She was a natural. First painting she ever did was great. She and my uncle Norman was her brother. That was the musical side of my family. My dad had good taste in music, but he was not musical at all.
Yeah, it sounds like they were lovers of the arts. And I believe you showed me some art of your mom's in your studio upstairs. Is that right?
Yeah, the one that's right behind me of the African drummer.
She did that.
That was the second or third thing she ever did.
Okay.
She had her own way too. She used to ladle it on with a butter knife. She was like oil paint, so they had texture. Paintings would like come off the canvas. She was brilliant, man. She could take apart a radio and fix it without reading a book or a manual. She just you know, she never acted smart, like humble. My dad was also very smart, but he let you know it. You know, he used it as a tool. My mom never mentioned it. You wouldn't even know. And she was hip, so to the point too. You know, this was my thing with my mom. My friends would come over, and they'd be, "Man, your mom is so hip," you know. And I said, "I know, but Mom, could you shut up? These are my friends," you know. See, they would wind up hanging with my mom instead of me. You know.
And so how did different influential people, like who were some influential people, and love to hear more about Mingus and his influence and what it was like to play music with him, to know him.
Well, I think playing with Mingus, you learn something which is really very important. That whoever is the strongest musician on the band, you don't take your eyes off of that person. That's your main focus. Of course, you're trying to hear what everybody's doing. It's not like you're ignoring the rest of the band. Mm-hmm. But whoever is the leader's got the strongest understanding of what it is. You got to watch him. And with Mingus, it was very difficult because he was changing like on the spot. And it didn't go easy on me either because I was 13. But that's true in general. And and people say they get scared, and so they don't listen or they don't watch, and that's the exact opposite thing to do. I was scared playing with Mingus, especially in a club live. In the house, he'd come and play piano. We'd play duets in my house. But sometimes I'd sit in with him on the matinee at this one club that he played. I used to sit in with him because they played all year, one whole year in the same club. I would go every Sunday because that's the only time I could get in. It was a matinee, and they didn't serve booze, so you could be underage, And many of them I would sit in with the band, and I was scared a little bit, but I never took my eyes off the dude, because I didn't want to miss anything, and I'm sure I missed a lot, but it wasn't for lack of paying attention. I see people now who say they're scared to play with me, which, man, I'm a nice cat, man. I don't have to be scared of you. It's been a long time since I ever hit anybody.
or threw a stick.
Or wanted to, even. No, I would never, you would never take your eyes off the person you're scared of, man. But people do, they ignore me, they don't want to look at me, they look away or something, I don't think that's good. Anyway, so that's one thing I learned from Mingus. But I knew that on myself. I could see that you don't do that. Years later, I remember playing with Danilo Perez, the great piano player from Panama. Yeah. And we were playing his music, and of course, in his music, he knows it. He knows it better than anybody. It's his music. He wrote it. He conceived it. It's his stuff, And so naturally, I would watch him like a hawk when I played with him, to try to make sure I'm catching everything, getting what I need to get. And one time we were playing, I think it's at Scullers in Boston, and there's maybe the greatest of the current, more current congueros is Giovanni Hidalgo. Oh, yeah. You know who he is, man. Yeah. Anybody who doesn't, man, you check him out. He's one of the greatest percussion. And he's a sweet guy also. Yep. Yeah, he is a sweet guy. I met him, he's a beautiful cat. But anyway, what made me, okay, so he sat in with us, right? And with Danilo, and before he was there, I was watching Danilo. When he came in, I was watching him. And because what he was doing against the clave was so advanced, it was so almost against it. I would have liked to say, man, Giovanni, can I take a lesson? Can we get together? Can you show me? Can you slow that shit down? Let me count. But now do it. I want to see, because I didn't know what he was doing. And it was really threatening my ability to hold the form. And I said, I gotta pay attention to this guy, because one thing you don't want to do, especially that was in a club in front of people, is have to stop playing or turn it around, And I appreciate it too, because like Mingus, Giovanni didn't go easy on me. He didn't say, oh, this gringo, I'm gonna give him my simple stuff. He was laying some polyrhythms that, man, I don't think I'd ever heard before. And they were stretching where I'm thinking, am I still right? Am I still in the right place? Hanging on like Sylvester Stallone and Cliffhanger by my fingertips, like hanging on. So that's the same lesson. You watch whoever is the deepest or got the most, in the way, the most dangerous. I don't mean like as a person, but I mean in terms of you not understanding what they're doing. They can lose you.
Yeah. So even though they might lose you because you're paying attention, you don't want to ignore them. Is that
absolutely? And maybe as a kid, I could I could watch and listen, and still I'm sure I was missing stuff. But it wasn't because I wasn't looking, or I was watching him like a hawk. Plus, he was just you couldn't take your eyes off him anyway because he was that charismatic, you know.
Yeah.
You never knew what he was going to say and what he was going to do, and his movement was just really strong. And this is something he said to me that was kind of cool. And I actually argued with him like an idiot. But
It's like, Giovanni said to you?
What's that?
Who said this to you?
Mingus.
Mingus, okay.
Mingus said to me one time, and I was 13 years old or something. He said, Bobby, he said, you got to learn how to play sloppy, man. And I remember arguing with him. I said, but Mingus, I'm 13. I don't even know how to play clean yet. What do you mean I got to learn how to play sloppy, man? And he said, no, man, you got to learn how to play sloppy. You don't want to be one of them like white studio drummers. That was his words, you know. Uh-huh. And I laugh now because, and I, you know, like I said, I argue with him. Now, of course, I understand exactly what he means. There needs to, for stuff to really feel good, it needs to be a little messed up.
Little human.
A little off, right? It's like the perfection of human imperfection.
Yeah, yeah.
That's why I don't want to hear the machine beats anymore. Hello, I see another face.
There's Danny Gottlieb.
There's Danny Gottlieb. Look at you, man. You're looking like Milton Berle now. Can I hear you? No. Look at you, man. You turn into an old guy. I love it. I love it. Now, you still got the youth spirit, man. Look at this cat. I love you, man.
You too.
Danny Gottlieb. Yeah, you know, I see. You're still a kid, man. You're still a puppy. You just got gray hair. I see. Now that I'm looking carefully, I see you, man.
Glasses, but what the heck?
I'm so happy, man. Where are you, in Florida? Where are you at?
Nashville.
Nesto?
Nashville. We're both in Nashville.
Oh, that's right. You're in Nashville. Yeah. Excellent. Okay.
I thought it. So we had a conversation last week. Beth and Danny, Danny's wife Beth and I, and so I thought it'd be cool to connect you two because when we had talked the night before, you said it'd been a long time. So anyway, so surprise.
Oh, I'm so happy, man. I told him to. Hopefully he passed it on. I said to pass on my love and gratitude to you, because it wasn't for you, I never would have wrote that book, Drum Wisdom. That was without you, it never would have happened. So if you don't like that book, you blame him.
That book has helped so many people, myself included. But you know, it's, and in fact, you know, Ra Kalam, we've been, you know, we'll talk about this another time. But you know, we've talked about redoing it, and there's all kind of a backstory about it, which is, you know, it's out of print and it's owned by Modern Drummer, and they were recently sold to somebody. So I don't know what the legalities are. Something we'd have to figure out. But
well, we should talk about another time about that. Do you have my home phone number, babe?
I do, and I'm overdue to call you. And I was going to do it, but Clifford set this up. He wanted to surprise you. So.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so happy, man. You look good, man.
You too.
All right.
How are you?
Danny plays a lot of tennis and hikes a lot.
Yeah. I see. Yeah, you look healthy, man.
Where we live, there's tennis court. That's a whole new thing Beth and I have gotten into. I'm addicted. It's like music. We're having a great time with it.
Yeah, tennis is beautiful. Very fluid, man. Definitely.
It's conversational, so it's kind of, you know.
Definitely, yeah. I can see it, man. I play you, man. I'm sure you'd kill me, but I play. I used to play when I was younger. You know.
I do it.
Yeah. I would love to.
How are you doing with this crazy time?
Well, you know, we may see some financial thing. I'm not at NEC anymore, and that's a loss of income. And gigs, well, the few gigs I was doing, which wasn't very much. I was supposed to go to Europe once this fall and do a few things. There's a recording that I was supposed to do in August that got canceled, and I would have made a little bread. So that's might be tricky. We'll see how that goes. Other than that, I don't mind it. You know, I feel bad for the people of the world because I can see the suffering and I can feel that people are really suffering, far worse than me. But my life is cool, man. I'm playing drums. I'm creating. I'm doing artwork. I'm doing so much artwork because I got so much time. I did like 6 new paintings, man. I got them coming out of the wazoo. That's a new one.
Oh, that's great.
Well, here's one that's almost done. It's a little bigger. Yeah, but I don't know if you see.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I'm cranking them. And playing a lot, recording for a while, my engineer, who's my roommate, also was not here. He was quarantining with his girlfriend, but he's been back and kind of in and out, but he's been coming in and we've been getting some work done. I did some recording just yesterday, all percussion, all hand drums. I've been playing hand drums like a lot and almost more than anything, and getting like we're pretty good, you know, because I can hear stuff. So eventually the hands are amazing because they'll do exactly what you hear. So if it doesn't sound good, it's just you're not hearing it good, right? That's really amazing. And drums in general, it doesn't have to be a hand drum. It's the same with sticks. Drums is probably the easiest instrument because, oh, it's a Billy Martin. Look at that. Wow. Illy B. Look at you, man.
Hey, Billy.
Yeah, man.
Oh, shit. Illophonic, man.
Hey,
You're looking like a grown-up, too. You cats are getting old on me. I don't see you for a while. You're starting to look like old men now. I love it. Because I remember you as pups. That's why, you know.
Yeah. I know. Where's your hair, man? Where's your afro?
Yeah, my afro. It's growing inward now. It keeps my brain warm.
Wow. Well, hello to Clifford and Danny. Wow.
Hey, Billy.
Yeah, we got the drummers, man. Oh man, I wish we could play all four of us like right now.
No.
Yeah. I like tribal drumming, and I try to even play that way myself to sound like more than one cat. I was talking with Clifford because he was playing some djembe for me, and he sounded really good, by the way. But I was encouraging him to play more harmonic, which is, you know, like right hand's doing one thing, left hand's doing something, bang, bang, instead of always just one thing at a time. See?
Mm-hmm.
And then you start sounding more, like it's almost like playing the drums like a piano. Like, you know, left hand plays the big chords and the right hand kind of plays the more melodic. So I think of the drums that way too. So it's not bing ka ding ding. It's like blah bling to bling to ding to bling to do bling to bling to bling to bling, right?
Yeah.
And that's just with one drum. Then of course you got the feet. That's some more harmony you can do. Well, I was saying, and this is see if you all agree. I bet you do, because we all have the same understanding at this point. But I was saying that the drums is the easiest instrument because whatever you hear will come out directly like that, your hands. And that's not true on a trumpet. I mean, if I said, yeah, I could not pick up a trumpet and get that. But with any drum, whatever I sing, my hands are going to do what they need to do. If I say, get up, da 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 dee da da dee da da. You can say, even one drum, you want to say low, high, you say low, high, bo ba, do ga ga, do ga. Of course, we like to bend notes too. Like, why guitar players are the only ones that can bend some notes. I always gotta have something that bends, right? But anyway, I've been playing more congas than djembe, but my congas are upstairs, so I didn't want to bring them down. I'm playing a lot of hand drums, but it is a direct instrument. You know, you sing it. You sing some light, big boom boom bitty boom boom bitty boom boom bitty boom boom, tack tack tack, boom boom bitty boom boom, tack tack tack, boom boom. Right. So the question is, what are you singing? If the stuff that you're hearing, that when I call it singing, is good, your hands will do it. So it's really the main thing to improve on drumming is your hearing. In other words, when you start to hear the material, whatever material you're choosing, well, you're going to play it well. Your hands will do what they need to do. It's possible that you may be hearing some stuff that's technically beyond your hands. I hear plenty of stuff like that I can't do technically, but in terms of simple things, you know, yeah, if you can sing it well, and that means hear it well, you'll play it well. It'll come out pretty much the same. I mean, if anything, the drum will make it sound better because my voice doesn't have a lot of resonance in this way that a nice drum. If you have a good drum, it'll make it even nicer sound, you know.
Absolutely.
So I just wanted to thank Billy and Danny for joining us, and I wanted to see if you all will indulge me in a little experiment. This is with the latency of communicating on the internet. We did this. Ra Kalam and I did this yesterday. But if I play just a downbeat, 4 beats, and then if you play where you hear the downbeat, or if you play all 4 beats and accent the downbeat, I just want to hear where everybody's downbeat is. So I'll start 1, 2.
Really? Wow. He's on 2. You're on 2. Oh. Well, he's improvising already. Billy's gone off. That's 1.5 minutes. Wow. Yeah, that was fun. And somehow I think after a while, we came into the same, we somehow managed to compensate. So we were all, I think
There's
we were
different
all,
pockets. It's interesting because, like, Danny, you were for a while clapping on my 2 and 4, and Billy, you were on like on the us for me or something like off. It was interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure. You can all see each other.
Yeah, can you not see us?
I see. No, I'm trying to figure out my.
Oh, so do you speaker view and then gallery view in the
Okay.
top right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't see the. I thought I would see gallery view somewhere, but
Are you on a phone?
yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not familiar. I'm on my laptop, so I'm not sure.
Danny Gottlieb, man.
Rock low.
You look like Milton Berle, man, as an old guy. I used to love Milton Berle. When I was a kid, he was the only guy on television. There was only 3 channels, you know, and he was on all of them pretty much. Jackie Gleason too. My other favorite.
And so one thing I was thinking, you both have you all have a long history of knowing each other, and I'd love to hear about how you first met each other, but also just if you have any stories or questions you'd like to share. I'm sure a lot of people would love to hear about those. Danny or Billy, do either of you want to go first?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
I can start, or Danny. Look, it was all about the Brazilian connection, you know, in the '80s. Clifford, I think you were around too, part of that. No, were you or no?
No, I was not. No.
Okay, I'm thinking of another Clifford or something that. But yeah, it was on 6th Avenue and 14th Street. Drummers Collective, Ra Kalam, Bob Moses had just got back from what I know is his South American trip, and he had visited Hermeto and everything. But I think that's when we met. I was already in the class, and he was hanging out. And the trip is, that like we started to get to know each other there a little bit, and then he asked me to kind of come over to his place. He was living in Brooklyn in a brownstone in Park Slope, to kind of play with him, play some parts. Cause, yeah, you knew I had the Brazilian kind of like I knew a lot of the different parts, and you needed that to kind of workshop with me, just the 2 of us actually, because you were writing new music, and so I asked people in the class. I'm like,
Man, we used to play on the street, you and me.
I know, but this is the very inception. So
Okay.
this is like, I didn't even know who you were. I knew you were a heavy cat. I could tell by the aura you carried and everything, and how people like. But I had to ask people. I was like, "Who's this Bob Moses guy? He's asking me to come over to his place and play with him." He goes, "Bob Moses, man, you better go." So, So that's really where I got to meet you really more, like we were hanging out in your apartment, and then we were going deep. You know, I was playing stuff for you. It was a very intimate kind of situation where I learned a lot about you. And I picked up the first record I got was When Elephants Dream of Music, and it just changed my whole life. You know, the whole thing, the album artwork, the sound, the music, the compositions, the players, the whole thing just really had a deep effect on me. And then from that point on, we were inseparable. I was like your Padawan. I was with you for like a decade or so at least. Like I was hanging out on all your gigs. You invited me to play a lot of your gigs.
And we took took you to Hawaii for the first time too, I think, wasn't it?
Oh man, yeah.
That changed everything too. We made a record there too with Greg.
Yeah.
Greg just sent me this little film. You'd love it. It was playing drums. I don't know if you were there or not, but Crazy by the Lava. And the kids, it's like Raphael's my son when he was like 5, and he was hanging with their 3 boys. And it's beautiful. The drumming is nuts. Sounded like some tribal Ubangi warriors going off, man, in Hawaii. So we have those we have a lot of experiences together, man. Yeah.
Oh my God, so many. I mean, it definitely is a book.
Yeah. He's the Brohim Supreme.
Oh man, I love you.
I love you
and
too.
And that's how I was introduced to Danny at your session. We were doing a record.
Danny is on When Elephants Dream of Music.
Right, and I came.
Right, he had the one tasteless gong hit at the end.
I had the you know, I did the next record with Danny at Vanguard Studio. We were recording some Visit with the Great Spirit music, I think.
Yeah.
And I was so honored to meet Danny. But that's my story of meeting Moses. How about you, Danny?
Well, for me, I'm just thinking, you know, I went to college with Pat Metheny in Florida, and Pat left after 2 years to teach at Berkeley.
You know, your volume is a little soft, Danny. Can you come up some way a little bit so I hear you a little better?
Sometimes it works weird, and sometimes it's not. Let's see. How about if I?
That's a little better. Yeah, that's a little better.
Maybe I'll just talk louder. Hopefully that's okay.
I get you.
Okay. Well, you know, when Pat was, we were students at University of Miami, and then he left to go teach at Berkeley after 2 years in Florida. And you started doing gigs, you and Jocko and Pat. And I used to just follow you guys around. I sometimes would swallow. And then, you know, when Pat joined Gary Burton's band, I used to live on listening to you play that music. Any minute I could, you know, when the albums came out, Ring and Dream So Real. But you know, whenever I would see you at the workshop, it was some of the most meaningful music in my life, seeing you with Pat and Gary Burton. And then when that first album came out, we were all so proud that Pat did an album, and it was such magical music. And I don't know if you even remember a period in your life where you were using 3 flat cymbals, nothing else. You had 3 flat rides. I saw you play a gig.
No hi-hat?
It changed my life. That was it. No, it was with hi-hat, but no bells on the cymbal. And I said, that's the greatest sound I ever heard. And you know, it was just, you know, some combination you happen to be using.
I don't remember. You sure that was me?
That's because I immediately went out to Zildjian and bought flat cymbals after I saw you doing it.
Oh yeah.
And
yeah.
I even grabbed Pat. We went down there. This is many years ago, but you know, that was where the flat cymbal thing. Although I'd heard it on recording, seeing you play 3 of them was mind-blowing. And that.
Wow, I don't remember having 2. I remember having 2, and they were nice for flat rides, because the thing with the flat rides is sometimes they're so dry, they're so ticky, there's no to them. But I had a couple that had more to them. They were still a flat ride, but they had they were warm. They were Zildjian ones. They were not Paiste ones, and they did sound pretty good, man. Of course, my favorite flat ride cymbal recording I ever heard is Roy Haynes on Now He Sings, Now He Sobs. I mean, that's obviously a flat ride, and that drumming on that is unbelievable. Well, that record is probably my favorite Chick Corea record, actually.
Me too.
Yeah, and Roy is popping on that thing. So yeah, it has a thing. I mean, definitely. And I know that Pat liked it, and I think that became the sound for some people. I think a lot of the drummers today, even though they're not using necessarily flat ride, but they're using very dry cymbals, which are kind of going in that direction. And I understand why, but for me, that makes it too easy, you know. Like I like a cymbal that's loud and roaring, and if I want it soft, I have to play it that way. In other words, I have to learn how to control the cymbal. I want to know that when it's roar, there's a lot of music there that I may need to tamper down. If you start with it's already tampered down, then that's all you got, you know.
And maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe you had.
But I'm thinking of getting one too at some point, maybe. You know. We'll see. But I love my cymbal, so.
It was something you had. I thought it was 3, and maybe I was mistaken, but in my memory, that's what it was. But it was the cymbal sound that totally was so influential. And I was just flashing on something else. Do you remember when we went to Joe Morello for you to take a lesson with him? Do you remember?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. In fact, I was curious, you know, if and maybe we can do this because you know, after this and stuff, you and me, Danny, hopefully we stay in touch and maybe Skype or so. I have Skype now, you know, but one of the things I was really interested in was the Joe Morello technique, which I can't say that I really ever, I didn't go into it deep enough to really understand it, but I had some rough idea of what it was. And I know that you understand it very well, and I was curious because I thought there really might be something in it for me. But the ironic thing was, or I thought it was kind of funny, was, you know, when you go to take a lesson with Joe, he asks you to play for him, you know, which is what I do when a drummer comes. I just say, just play. Let me hear what you got, you know. I don't say anything until they just, whatever you want to play, just play, you know, let me see what you do. And so I played for him, and he said something, you know, remember, he was kind of blind, and he couldn't see, right? He was legally blind, right? He had really bad vision, so he couldn't really see me. But he said to me, he said, you're already playing the way that I teach. He said, you already know what it is that I do. And I said, I don't think so. Because from what I understood, it was like not grabbing the stick too tight so that you let the stick bounce, and like controlling the natural bounce. And that's why he was able to get this incredible rolls with one hand and stuff, and it was so fluid and stuff. So I was like grabbing the stick like hard. And he thought I was playing his way, and because he associated the way I play with people being stiff. He said, you sound so loose and fluid, because I guess his method, again, you don't grip it too tight, you keep the stick open, flowing, bouncing, you know. And again, correct me if I misunderstand. But anyway, my thing was, no, I'm holding them tight, but my whole body is loose. In other words, I'm not counting on the looseness to come right where the stick meets the hand. In fact, I want to think my arms, my legs, my neck, my back, my ass, my knee are loose, and so it's. Again, I want the stick to be like in control, but I do some bounce too. I do some things where I just let it fall, but I'm generally stroking. And you know, people ask me sometimes how I can use these short sticks, because you know the sticks that I use. I should have brought some from upstairs, but you've seen me. You know what I do. You know, they're much shorter than the Vic Firth or whatever, you know, store-bought sticks. And I said, well, you know, they don't feel short to me. They feel like having a long finger, like a long wooden finger. Because I'm playing the drum set more like a hand drummer. And with hand drums, you can't bounce too much. I mean, you can, but you don't get much sound. In order to get a sound, you have to kind of hit it. You know, you can't just bounce. You can, but it's not as, it's going to be a little weaker, you know. So I'm actually stroking each stroke. So for me, it just feels I have a long wooden finger. And which makes it easier to play loud and play on the cymbals. And also I was talking about the reason why I use different sticks for right hand and left hand. People might be interested in that. And the idea again was they're not doing the same thing in the music. So and they're not of equal strength either. My right hand and left hand are not equal. I wish they were. Probably Danny's is, because he's such a technical thing, but some drummers, but most of us, if we're right-handed, we're right-handed heavy, you know, or stronger, you know. So so I always use a fatter stick for the left hand, because that's my bass stick. Anyway, so I use a thinner one for the right hand. If I'm hearing a part that's like high and dry, like a I use a skinny little thing. If I'm hearing something that's more boom, bing, bing, boom, bing, I'm using the fat one, that's the left hand. So I get ding, da, boom, bing, da, ding, ding, da, da. Now I could do that with two sticks that are the same, but it's much easier to orchestrate for me. I knew that because my left hand isn't as strong as my right, I wanted a fatter stick there, so I get more power. You know, it's having like a weighted glove or something, you know. So anyway, that's it has to do with orchestration, and I don't know if that's for anybody else, but I do encourage people in general. Is my encouragement to you, Clifford, is try stuff. Just don't be, you know, try unusual stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really not even that unusual, but I know Illy B's been doing it. You play with one hand and one stick. You play with different parts of your hand. You know, how you stroke the drum, the creativity in that. You know, I remember when I first started playing with some real Brazilians, and they told me I was too academic. And, no, man, you got to pick up the stick like a monkey. And they would have, this is, here's a stick, you know. So like, whereas we're usually thinking like this. It's one of my hemp sticks that my bed in Turkey makes. I love these. That's how, you know, or match grip, like so. They would say, no, hold it like this, you know. It's like, and it's like shkak, back. It's like a monkey, you know. And I would say, yeah, that's how they, you know, they get a feeling by doing it that way. And if you're too, like, you know, classical, you're not going to get the thing. That's why sometimes classical musicians have a hard time playing jazz or African music or Brazilian music, because the training is to be so perfect and so correct. And I do think that's, you asked me about Mingus, who told me, Bobby, you got to learn how to play sloppy. And now I know what he means, you know.
And I was wondering, Billy and Danny, what are some things, I know there's probably so many, but some things that you learned from Ra Kalam, and also if you have any questions for him, maybe some things where you're like, what did you
in your
mean by
hammock
that?
chilling? Look at you, Illy B in his hammock. Well, he's so cool. You're always the coolest, man. What's that?
I think you're muted. I think you're muted, Billy.
I want to cut. You know, I got some things to say about Moses, of course, how he influenced me. He's influenced me in so many ways. I don't know where to start. But one thing I wanted to just point out is I cut a bunch of bamboo yesterday, and like it reminds me of, you know, I've been playing. You know, you sent me a bundle of sticks years ago that you had cut from like reeds or like bamboo type sticks, and I fell in love with that idea. And I'm growing a certain kind of bamboo here, man, and I'm using these things. Check them out. They're like, you know, they're solid, and they're like, you know, various thicknesses and lengths. So obviously, you can cut them. But you know, if you're interested, I'll send some to you. But
I would like that, especially the thicker ones. But I mean, if you got a couple of thin ones, I'd be interested in, but just to see. But I have a feeling the thick ones would be more my thing.
Yeah, okay, I will.
I would love that, man, sure. Because my boy in Turkey who sent me these, and these, he's not making them anymore. I guess he ran into some, and I love these. These sound amazing. Not on the cymbal, but on the drums. I use them all the time. They're made from hemp.
Well, I know this guy, Dave Deming, Dem Sticks, man. He's amazing. He's got a lot of great stuff like that.
Okay.
And he's not like a commercial guy. He's independent. He does his own amazing stuff. I'll turn you on to him.
Please do. You always do that with me. You turned me on to Morford, and he sent me some stuff. You always seem to have a line to these guys who make hip, unusual instruments. I'm definitely looking for sounds. I always gotten into sound, you know.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. That's the thing about working with Moses is, you know, first of all, the fact that he liked anything about my playing was, you know, really a great thing. And but I learned so much playing with him because the way he would, express what he wanted to hear in the music. A lot with a lot of drummers, he was always telling them you got to play more melodically and certain different ways of phrasing and stuff, and you know, the musicality. And I know it's beyond musicality, Moses. I know that, but there's a certain sense of a lot of drummers that just sit and they just play time, but they can't really go beyond that. And what I learned from you was that there's a whole orchestra in the way you play. You know, there's a huge spectrum of sound and expression, and
I appreciate that. Thank you. You guys
and
are
when I
saying
hear,
some really nice things about me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
yeah, well, I could say more, but Danny, you have any anecdotes or anything?
You know, every time we hung out, every time I heard you, it's been an influence to me. You know, you're one of the most meaningful people in my life in terms of, you know, music and friendship. When we spent the time working on the Drum Wisdom book, you know, everything you talked about, the accent points and resolutions and, you know, the thing that you were trying to get everyone to focus on playing the same thing in a solo. I mean, I've quoted that a million times. It's been so meaningful. But I just was thinking musically. I remember there was one gig we played. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was you. We played at, I think it was on New Year's Eve at Avery Fisher Hall. It was you and Jocko, and I don't remember, maybe it was Matheny and somebody else, but you came on stage and took command of this music, not in an authoritative way, but I'll never forget how you just made magic on that stage. It was just something unbelievable. You know, I felt that there was and every time you play, there's an inner strength and a wisdom that is just so beautiful and wonderful.
And I think visionary is like one of the things. Someone who has such a strong vision and is able to sort of get the band to kind of express his compositions in such a way, and it's such a, you know, it's like it's the ultimate artist, you know.
That's the way I've always, over the years of knowing you, Ra Kalam, I've always equated trying to understand some of the things you said and to being a pure artist, and also like the antithesis of the pop culture, I'd say, which is, you know, which is interesting because I think people who know you and who find you are probably not people who are in general looking for the pop culture sort of element of music. But anyway, yeah, I'd love to hear more about what you all questions you have or what you have to say, because you have such a long, you know, history together.
Well, it's hard to ask Ra Kalam questions. I just thinking about all this stuff, like you just mentioned, like antithesis of pop and stuff, but like when I met Ra Kalam, Moses, you were like, I don't want to hear about jazz. I don't want to hear. I just want. I
still don't want to hear about it. Less now than ever.
Right. So.
Less now than ever.
Remember, we used to groove out on like Janet Jackson and like hip hop stuff. And
like, definitely, man. Peter Gabriel, man, and Sting, and man, some of the best music. I love Peter Gabriel, man. But I always listen omni. You know, always. I mean, you know, I grew up. I mean, the same day, I'm thinking when I was a kid, I'd hear Bob Dylan, I'd hear the band, I'd hear Albert Ayler, I'd hear Bill Evans, I'd hear Shostakovich, I'd hear Ravi Shankar. I'm talking about the same day. You know, Simon and Garfunkel or whatever. Love that shit, man. You know, I've always been, I just want to hear something great, man. I don't care. And for me too, the emotional component is very, very important. And sometimes jazz has that, but a lot of times it doesn't. It's more like purely musical. And I'm telling you, the purely musical don't do it for me. I can respect it, and there's some who are way more musical than me, and I say, wow, they're great musicians, but if it don't reach in and pull my heart out of my chest, I'd rather hear silence. That's me as an old guy. That's how I've evolved as a listener. So, you know, you'd be, if you, it's funny because these days I hardly listen to music at all. Certain specific things for specific reasons at specific time, but not as a general practice. I listen to Tsitsi's music, that's my teacher, because his music heals me in a way that, and liberates me in a way that no other music ever did. I listen to my own stuff more because I have to critique it. I'm brutally critical, and I'm trying very hard to make it better all the time and learn from my past mistakes and continually evolve. So I listen to my own. I have to force myself to listen to my own, and I'm way behind on a bunch of projects, but I do eventually listen to it very carefully. And beyond that, this is the part you might laugh is, I have to admit to a guilty pleasure, I got all these great singers from these stupid shows on YouTube, you know, but the shows are like X Factor, Britain's Got Talent, and they're all over the place, you know, Norway's Got Talent, you know. I've got a list of over 50 singers now. Every one of them makes me cry, brings me to tears. And every one of them, I would say, is a master. And every one of them I look at as a higher musician than myself, because I can't do what they do. They do this melody perfect, which means, and on every level, the timing and the emotion is perfect. When you hear a great singer, that's also, by definition, any great singer is a great drummer, because delivering melody is all about timing and putting the perfect, what's new, you know, how is the world treating you? Anybody who's a great singer, and some of them were great drummers, like Marvin Gaye was a drummer, and I think Phil Collins is a drummer. You know, it's not unusual that Levon Helm, man, one of the greatest singers and drummers.
Stevie Wonder, Prince.
Stevie Wonder, Prince. There you go. And anybody, whether they ever sit at a drum or not, who's a great singer is a great drummer. So I have a list of these 50 singers or more, and they're doing. It doesn't matter. One singing a Beyonce tune. There's one woman who works as a cleaner. She's scrubbing toilets, and she sang "Wild Horses." You know, the Stones tune. Man. You know, the little girls. There was a 7-year-old girl from Norway who sang Billie Holiday, Gloomy Sunday, and she came out with no shoes on, like me. I play with no shoes, you know, and man, you could tell she was feeling every note. It wasn't like just, okay, I can imitate because I'm a genius, prodigy kid. No, she was feeling it, man. That's Angelina Jordan. She's a teenager now, and she's singing great as ever. She showed up on another show. But I find them, I know these shows are stupid, and I don't really like the premise, but I found these great singers. Some are singing opera. There's you know, it doesn't matter. So I never cared about what genre. I cared about whether it got me, whether it had that soul, that cry. You know, that's always been the thing for me. You know, when it comes to music, and more so ever than now. Because as a younger, I could listen to a lot of music just for musical stuff. But now I just got so little time. If I want to hear, you know, I'd rather hear silence. I mean, if it doesn't just, you know, could be Mahalia Jackson, man, or Pavarotti or something. And that's an interesting thing too, because you're talking about drummers who just play time or just play a groove. I did a thing recently with a bunch of drummers, and one of them asked me, like, where do I get my playing, or what's my influence? And I knew they wanted name. I was going to say silence, man. My drumming comes from silence, but it's a room full of drummers. I knew they weren't going to get that. And they wanted names, you know, I got it. So I said, yeah, well, I guess in terms of tone, I started saying, you know, Frank Sinatra, you know, Pavarotti, Pablo Casal, Coltrane. I know they're all thinking, well, wait, these are not drummers, right? Why do I want to sound like a drummer, man? I mean, I love the drums. Don't get me. I know I'm talking to drummers here, so you know I love the drums, man. But I'm going for beauty. I mean, not all drummers are going for beauty, and I'm not saying that everybody needs to or anybody should, but for me, I'm going for beauty. I want to be as beautiful as Pablo Casal, and I know I'm not going to get there, but I'm going to try as hard as I can, and that's my aesthetic. So it's good for drummers to realize that they can be beautiful. And of course, it's a matter of taste, who you think is beautiful. I'd say Billy Higgins had a beautiful tone, beauty, tone. Pete LaRocca, maybe the most beautiful tone on the drums. But again, it's a matter of taste, you know. But the great drummers, to me, have great tone, is great sound. And I do like a beauty aesthetic. You know, there are people who go on for noise or industrial, and I do that too sometimes. Sometimes I'm in that mood, you know. Just pure sound, just rough, raw. But even there's got to be a certain beauty in it. I don't want to harsh people out. I want to hurt people with the sound. You know, Jim Pepper, I have to give respect to Jim Pepper, that he was the first guy to really open my ears to so-called avant-garde playing. I mean, in the early days, I was kind of skeptical about avant-garde. It sounded like some just guys screaming in the horn, and I didn't know if they could really play or not, you know. Thought maybe they were just screaming. Maybe they're just angry or pissed off and they got a saxophone or something, you know. And the first time I heard Pepper, he was playing this beautiful jazz ballad. I mean, of the highest level, like Coltrane level. And I said, this guy is great. The next time I heard him, man, he was, I think there might have been some psychedelics involved, but he was just playing with the bell into the corner because so his sound would come back, just screaming like a banshee, just like, wow, that same guy that was playing so beautiful, now he's just screaming. So maybe I should listen more carefully. And then I started listening more carefully, and I heard, oh, there's a lot of beauty in this guy's scream. So I think that's one of the hallmarks of a great horn player, like a Pharoah Sanders, screaming. I don't know if he does as much now, but in the old days, screaming, man. Beautiful, though, beauty. There's real music in that. Albert Ayler, screaming, but beauty. So, you know, sometimes I like the beauty is important to me. I think I'm getting closer. You got to hear some of the new stuff I've been doing, man. I had a breakthrough on the drums in the last couple of weeks, definitely. And playing a lot more hand drums, too. But it's getting where it's just so relaxed, but intense, man, but super relaxed, man. And the tones, and my engineer, he's really starting to understand how to record those drums, because they're unlike any other set, really, the ones upstairs, you know. Yeah, so I'm feeling good. I'm feeling better now. I hope I live for a while longer, so I see how far I can go. I feel pretty good. I feel pretty good for now, man.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, because now that I'm getting up there too, like I'm like gonna be 57.
Ow!
Yeah.
Oh shit! Hang on, let me let's see what it is. Hang on. Here? No. Never mind. Yeah, I'm sorry. So you're 57 now.
No,
Okay.
wait, what I'm starting to, I don't know, there's a sensation that I'm starting to feel is that, like, I'm starting to take everything in. Like, I'm appreciating a lot more now than before. I used to be kind of a little bit more tribal vibe about, like, yeah, I'm into this, I'm not into that. I mean, I was into a lot of things, you know, but now I see things in a different light. And I was just wondering, like, how you feel about that. Are you starting to feel like everything's connected, or like, do you have any kind of philosophy on, like, just living, like, as an artist and a musician, like as a drummer, as a composer?
Yeah. Well, you know, I think that everybody has a different path, and that's how it should be. And everybody has some very difficult choices to make as they go along the journey. For me, it's there has to be no fear. You know, that's very important. And also, like I say, for me to be interested in it, music, there has to be an element of heart, of love, compassion, in whatever form it takes. And it doesn't matter if it's music. It can be medicine or cooking or dancing or making films or whatever it is, or writing books or poetry. Really, anything you do wants to have that spiritual quality, done with compassion, selflessness, egolessness. These are hard qualities to achieve, but that's the purpose of growing old, is to get closer to it all the time, right? It's, you know, and by the time we get there, we say, man, this tired old body, man, I wish I had my young body to work with. But I feel like the spirit is getting stronger, no question about it. And the body's getting weaker, you know, and that will happen. And you're 57 is young, man. If you think you're old now, wait a minute. And I mean, and I'm not old, man. I mean, you know, 70. I'm 72. That ain't really that old, but I'm aware of certain physical things that I can't do. But actually, I'm moving better, man. It's interesting, and the playing, definitely, there's no question. And churning out artwork too, because that's also, you get a little older, you realize time is short, or shorter. There's no question about it. And we never know, really. So, and now that I'm home so much, which is great, man. Look, I just brought a few. Here's a couple. Here's one.
Nice colors, wow.
Yeah, that's in the blue. That's the cosmic blue elephant, man. That's it. You got an elephant in there. And
Oh,
then
yeah.
Circles, man. You're always doing the circles.
I've been pretty much settled in the circles for a while now. But I go outside the circle though too, you see.
That looks like Love Everlasting, man. That kind of similar cover. That record cover.
That's the Coltrane. That was the Coltrane collage.
Right.
Yeah,
but
that was a bigger one. That was a bigger one. Here's a new one.
Yeah.
So hey, Ra Kalam, now I'm going to ask you: could you look at those and play them, like scores?
Well, I could. Yeah, I could. But when I play, I don't even want any scores. I just want to go.
Yeah.
I could do that. I did that for you. You sent I played to one of your.
Yeah. Thank you.
One of your artwork, and I guess obviously the interpretation is up to the individual, but I took it kind of literal, like your chart. You may not realize it, but when you went, I said, well, how long is that relative to that one? So that's short. That's like 20 seconds. So I picked a thing and I did, and when it ended, I stopped. And then I saw these lines, and they came like a few little seconds after that. And so I said, ooey, ooey. And, I actually tried to play like it was very literal score.
Wow, I'm honored. I mean, you did a beautiful job. Yeah, that's on my record, Wandering. I would be happy if you just put it in your pocket and just played. But like the fact that you paid attention to the lines is really, that's incredible. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I said, I took it like classical music. I can't fuck up this guy's piece. He wrote this really great piece. It's not, I got to try to do it justice,
You did. You brought a whole.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, I think, people can do that. You can use anything as a source for music. It could be a poem. It could be a thought. It could be a painting. It could be something visual. It could be, something in nature. A lot of the playing these days is very oceanic, and I've been having ocean dreams a lot and remembering some of my Hawaiian buds. I've been in touch with a few people, and I remember how that affected the drumming. On the place where our friend Carl lives, which is right on the ocean on the Big Island. He's a magical cat, also a drummer, the great Carl Green. When I would take the drums out there on the rock, like right by the ocean, and when I played anything that was reminiscent of Elvin, which, by the way, you see, I'm representing today. You see, I got.
Yeah, beautiful photo. Oh my God.
Look at that smile. Look at them teeth, man. Wow, that's serious choppers, man, and them eyes. Anyway, when I would get into Elvin, Elvin to me is very oceanic, very like waves, right? That's how his playing struck me. The turtles would start coming up. These giant sea turtles. And usually you might see them maybe once an hour or so. They were coming up every 3 minutes. And you see these giant turtle asses, and they flipping, going back down and so. And I realized that turtles loved Elvin. And every time that I would go into Elvinish vibe, the turtles would respond to it, man. And I realized there's an oceanic level. Rashid, to me, plays like water to me sometimes. Sometimes like fire, sometimes like crackling. I talk about this on my videos, which I might as well plug for the few people. I did a couple of videos called Living Music.
My Music Masterclass.
Yes, exactly. That's the way you'd find it. My Music Masterclass. Yeah, and I was talking about like skipped records. I used to really love the skipped records. For those of you who are into LP, still, I go, you guys probably all are into LPs. Some of the kids are getting into them again. But they would skip sometimes. They'd get to a spot. And the adult in the room would always say, fix that. I say, no. And I wind up like looping it with them because it's a loop. It's a natural loop. And then starting to improvise off that loop. And I got a lot of ideas. So sometimes that's what I do. In the drums, I become like a skip record. I get a certain motion, and I'm able to just loop that. It's without thinking. It's just like I know what I did. I know what my body did, and I'll just do that and stay in it, and then listen to it and start to see, wow, and they're untranscribable. They're not symmetric, necessarily. So there's anything can be an inspiration. There's a tree across the street. I go out on my porch, and when the strong wind, this tree, it sounds like 100 Rashid Ali's, man, and it's dancing like. I'm going, I watch that, and I listen to it and say, man, I'd like to play some shit like that. And I haven't got there yet, but I hear it, man, you know. And it strikes me too as so beautifully egoless, right? Because it's not trying to show you how hip it is or how well I've learned this culture or that culture or this style. It's just dancing in the wind. And I'm thinking, man, I just want to play like that. A lot of the new stuff I'm doing, it's so transparent. It's not weak, but it almost disappears, like the atmosphere. You don't notice it. It's like the air, or it's the sky, or like the clouds. And I'm really liking drumming that way. And since I'm unemployed anyway, I can do it. And that's the other thing too. It's like, what's worth it to you? What's important to you? Is freedom important to you? To me, it is. So for the little time I have left, there's no dumbing down. You know, I just got to go and I don't care if people get it or understand it. Usually people are very generous and very sweet about it and say nice things about my playing, if they even know what I'm doing. Most of the new records people don't know about it because I don't promote them and they don't get reviewed for the most part. But I'm starting to like my drumming finally after a few. It's getting that place where it's just like the wind. And yet it's dancing too. Because you can hear that I've been through these cultures, because you can feel it. It's like there's a samba in the wind, you know. I did this one on pans, and it's like a spaceship flying over Trinidad, man. It's beautiful, man. It's not in any particular time, but it still sounds like carnival. It's like an extraterrestrial carnival vibe, you know. And especially playing free on the congas, on the hand drums, which already have that cultural dance feel, but not necessarily putting it in time. Although I've been doing some time stuff too. I did one that's like a Tony Allen groove on the congas, and it is grooving, man. So every once in a while I'll click into something that's just really down the middle groove. And don't forget, Billy, that you play on my groove record, which is another project. Because almost everything I've been doing lately has been what you might call free or rubato, pretty open. But I had one record that's a dance groove record. It's going to be called The Dance of Life. And you're on it, and we're getting closer. I need a couple of more parts, and it'll be pretty much done. But you play on a few things, and you got a little solo even, where we all drop out, and it's just you.
Wow.
And it's on the end of that, like NPR blues. There's like a funk tune, it's like a B-flat blues funk tune. And you played on top of my original drum beat, and at the end, we just let you hang by yourself. At the end, it's beautiful, man. It's like
can't wait to hear it.
Cross the bar funk, yeah. And you're on some other stuff too, Tupac too. I mean, and now that I'm getting better on hand drums, I'm gonna do another pass on me on congas, because I always wanted to get this great conga player, and it never worked out for what reason. I'm saying, shit, I'll do it myself now. I'm feeling confident enough, you know.
Hey, well, I wanted to thank you all for doing this, and we can go a little longer if you all want. But I just want to ask you one other question, Ra Kalam, which was, what does freedom and meditation mean to you? It could be two separate things, but.
Well, you know, a liberation of the mind and is the opening of the heart. That's what spiritual means to me, is free. That's what it means to be truly spiritual, is to be free. And you talk about a way of living life. You know, Tuskegee talks about the 5 fingers of darkness and getting beyond them. And the anger, greed, lust, vanity, and attachment. And definitely I had a lot of anger at points, a lot of lust. Greed, not so much, you know. Vanity, maybe some, but not that much. Attachment, sure, everybody does, but maybe not as much as some people. So, you know, everybody has to figure out where they stand on that spectrum and see what they need to work on to free themselves, you know. Still working on it, you know. I have the lustful thoughts every once in a while, but that's as far as it goes. There's no action or anything. And I'm trying my best really not to at this point, you know. I need to save that energy for the music, see. That's the Kundalini energy. And also again, not maybe being free of your habits, being free of your conditions, you know, your conditioning. There's so many programs that we get, both as a society. We get family programs of your particular family, how you grew up, your particular scene, what school you went to. These things. There's so many people are so programmed. So freedom means to get beyond programs. I only know one person who has accomplished that. That's Tsiji, my teacher. I know there are other spiritual masters, but I've never had close personal contact with any other spiritual master. So I have a living example of what that is, which also lets me know how far away I still am from it. But it's a good path to be on, and I feel like much happier and less attached. You know, my new mantra is "It's gonna be good. It's gonna be good." Right? Yeah, we're gonna put you in front of the firing squad tomorrow. Gonna be good. Gonna be good. Quick exit to heaven. I love it, man. You know, I'll enjoy it. I really do feel that I'm going to enjoy death, and I'm not, trying to rush it or anything. I like to hang for a while because I'm enjoying life, but I'm not afraid of death, and I think it's nothing to be afraid of. But it's another reason to try. Why it means you want to clean up your act as much as you can while you're still alive. You want to accomplish what's important for you to do while you're still alive. I think, but so when you go, you feel like, yeah, it's done, and no regrets, but I'm not worried about it. I think it'll be wonderful, the ultimate selfless being. So, I think that's important too, to be graceful in death. The tune by Levon Helm, man, what's the tune that he wrote? It's on Electric Dirt. You know what I'm talking about, man? It's so funky. It's a great tune, man. He's talking about like what you would sing at his funeral. He said, "I don't want no tears, just joy." And he's talking about how he's going to see his kin again. It's a beautiful song, man. Plus his drumming on it is fantastic. Anyway. I love you cats, man. I'm so happy to see you, man. If this is the way, if it has to be by computer, so be it. Better than nothing. I love it. I haven't seen you guys in the flesh in a while. Danny, I don't know. It's the last time I saw it. Last time I saw him, he was a kid, and now he looks like Milton Berle. But a handsome, younger, fit Milton Berle. Actually,
Well, thank you, everybody, for doing this. It was really, I really enjoyed getting you all together and just hearing you all interact. So I just want to mention that Ra Kalam and I were talking.
I'm going to play for you a little bit.
Oh yeah, and after one of you play, and then I'll mention what I was going to mention about. Thank you.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, so I just wanted to mention to people tuning in, Ra Kalam, we had talked about for people who are interested in a master class, it is possible to do a Zoom master class with you. And
Skype. I got the Skype.
Yeah, and
I
Skype.
could Zoom. Yeah.
And so anyway, so people, I will send them your way, or we can make that happen. If people want to contact Ra Kalam or myself, and I'll make sure to send them your way.
I appreciate that. Thank you. All you cats have been big allies to me, and I for my whole life. All of you cats have been very helpful and supportive, and I really appreciate it, man.
And so thank you, Danny Gottlieb. Thank you, Billy Martin. Thank you, Ra Kalam. I really appreciate it. You're all influences for me, and I look up to all of you, so I really appreciate it.